I saw my fiancé at Walmart, buying condoms. We don't use those. Then he turned around. My best friend. It was a Thursday evening, the kind where everything feels predictable, the kind of day that blurs into every other workday. I had finished a long shift repairing HVAC systems in the industrial park outside town. My uniform still smelled faintly of insulation and copper dust, and all I wanted was to grab a few groceries, head home, and crash on the couch with Tara. She'd told me that morning she'd be visiting her mom for dinner. Something about helping her sort through boxes for the wedding. We were supposed to be married in 3 months. Everything was planned down to the napkins. The Walmart parking lot was half empty, the sky still glowing orange from the late sun. I remember thinking I'd be quick: bread, eggs, milk, and something easy for dinner. The sliding doors opened with that low hiss, and the cool air hit my face. I pushed a cart down the first aisle, barely paying attention, just zoning out. Then I caught sight of someone who moved in a way that jolted me straight out of autopilot. It was her, Tara, my fiancée. She was at the far end of the personal care aisle, wearing the same olive green jacket she'd worn that morning. At first, my brain didn't connect it. I froze, wondering if maybe it wasn't her. Maybe someone who looked like her from the back. The fluorescent lights flickered above, and I leaned slightly to the side. It was her, no question. Same messy bun, same tote bag with the faded Save the Bees logo. I stood there for a few seconds, confused. She told me she was with her mom. The Walmart on the other side of town, maybe. But this one? Now, alone? I didn't move closer. I watched. She wasn't buying food or toiletries. She was standing in front of a shelf with a nervous expression, glancing around like someone waiting for a cue. My cart sat idle in the middle of the aisle, blocking no one. I couldn't hear anything, but I could see her hand reach out and grab a small red box. I recognized it instantly. Condoms. I blinked, trying to rationalize it. We hadn't used those in years. She went on the pill long before we got engaged. There was no reason for her to buy them. Not for us. My pulse quickened, not in anger, not yet, just confusion. Maybe she was getting them for someone else. Her sister? A friend? But the thought didn't stick. She looked around again, shoved the box into her basket, and walked off fast. I stayed behind, letting her get a head start before I followed at a distance, pushing my cart quietly along the opposite aisle. My brain started spinning through a dozen weak explanations, but every one of them crashed against the same wall. When she reached the self-checkout, she took out her phone. I stopped near the magazines, pretending to browse. The noise of beeps and plastic bags filled the air. Then I saw him. At first, only the back of his head. Blonde, short hair, athletic build. The way he leaned toward her, the casual familiarity. It struck me like a slow punch in the chest. When he turned, I felt my whole body stiffen. Jesse, my best friend. We'd known each other since high school. The guy who helped me move into my first apartment. The guy who toasted me at our engagement party, who used to crash on my couch during his breakups. Jesse, standing there beside my fiancée, smirking at something she said while she scanned a box of condoms. The two of them looked synchronized. She laughed at something he whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear in that shy way she used to do with me. He reached out, touched her arm casually, and she didn't move away. When the machine beeped, she pulled a bottle of red wine from her basket. He scanned it for her. They bagged their items together like they'd done it 100 times. The noise around me blurred into static. A kid crying near the toy section, an announcement for price checks on aisle 7. None of it felt real anymore. My stomach tightened, my hands gripping the cart handle until my knuckles went white. Every instinct screamed to walk over, ask them what the hell was going on, demand an explanation right there under those fluorescent lights. But I didn't move. Instead, I watched them walk toward the exit, side by side. She glanced at him, smiling, and he placed a hand lightly on her lower back as they passed through the automatic doors. My mind caught every second, every careless gesture. I left the cart where it stood and followed. Outside, the air had cooled. They walked fast, laughing quietly, unaware of the world around them. I stayed far enough not to be noticed, but close enough to see everything. Tara pressed the key fob, unlocking her car, a dark gray Honda Civic. Jesse moved around to the passenger side. They got in. I stopped behind a parked pickup, my heart hammering. For a second, I thought maybe they'd just talk. Maybe I'd see him leave, and this would turn into some strange misunderstanding I'd laugh about later. But when the headlights came on and her car rolled out of the lot, I found myself walking toward my truck without thinking. My brain was no longer debating right or wrong. It was locked in survival mode. I started the engine, stayed back 3 cars behind them as they hit the main road. The night stretched ahead, long and empty. My hands were shaking on the wheel, but my mind was cold. I didn't feel rage yet, only clarity. Like something inside me had switched off the emotional part and replaced it with precision. Every turn they took, I matched from a distance. They left the main road and turned into a smaller street near the interstate. Then the truth finally landed. They slowed in front of a small, two-story motel, the kind with weekly rates and faded signage. The neon flickered, Lakeside Inn. I watched her park near the back entrance. They sat for a moment. Then she reached over, touched his shoulder, and they both got out. It was strange how quiet it was. The only sound came from crickets and distant highway hum. I watched as they walked toward a room near the corner, laughing softly. Jessie held the door open. She went inside first. Then the door shut, and the light inside flickered on. I sat there, engine idling, numb. Time stretched. 5 minutes. 10. 30. My body felt heavy, locked between disbelief and understanding. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't the kind of man who caused scenes. I'd always handled problems by fixing them, not exploding over them. But this wasn't something I could fix. This was rot. I pulled out my phone. I didn't even know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe to prove to myself that it wasn't just a nightmare I'd misinterpreted. I opened the camera, zoomed in, and took a photo of her car parked outside the motel room. Then another with the motel sign visible in the frame. Then I recorded a short clip of Jessie walking out to smoke near the stairs before going back inside. It was like watching someone else's life implode in real time. After that, I drove away. I didn't go home. I didn't go anywhere familiar. I ended up in an empty parking lot near the industrial district, staring at the dark windshield reflection of my own face. My brain replayed every memory with them both. The barbecues, the trips, the late-night poker games. I remembered Jessie laughing when Tara spilled beer on him. The way he told her, "Don't worry, I've had worse." At the time, I thought it was harmless. I'd even joked about it later. Now every word, every laugh, felt like a coded message I hadn't understood. The hours bled into one another. My phone buzzed twice. Once, a text from Tara, "Love you. Mom says hi." The second, a group chat ping from Jessie about the game on Saturday. The timing of it felt like mockery. I didn't answer either. That night, I couldn't sleep. The images looped endlessly. Her hand on his arm, the box of condoms, the motel room door closing. I realized I didn't just lose a fiancé. I lost the one person I trusted most outside of her. Both of them gone in one motion. But something else started to grow inside me, something colder. If they thought I was going to explode and make a fool of myself, they didn't know me as well as they thought. I decided I wouldn't confront them yet. Not until I understood everything. I needed to know how long this had been going on, why, and what they'd risked for it. By morning, the numbness had hardened into a strange focus. I called in sick at work, telling my boss I caught a stomach bug. Then I drove back to that motel and waited from a distance. Around 9, I saw her car pull out. She was alone now, hair down, coffee in hand. She drove off toward the city. Jessie's car followed a few minutes later in the opposite direction. I followed him this time. He went to his office, a small real estate firm on the west side. I watched him get out, straighten his jacket, and walk inside like he hadn't just spent the night with his best friend's fiancée. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Tara, heading to work. "Hope you feel better. Let's do dinner later?" I almost laughed. That afternoon, I sat in my truck outside his building for hours. The sun climbed higher, and the air conditioner hummed. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Maybe a sign. Maybe courage. What I felt wasn't revenge, at least not yet. It was curiosity, a dark kind that makes you want to see how far the lies go before they collapse. By the time I drove home, the wedding photos on the fridge felt like a mockery. Her dress hanging in the spare room, the invitation proofs on the counter, the registry saved on my laptop. All of it looked staged now, like props in a play I hadn't realized I was in. But I didn't touch anything. I didn't confront her that night, even when she came home smiling, smelling faintly of cheap motel soap under her perfume. I just listened, nodding, memorizing every lie that rolled off her tongue. Because if I was going to end this, I wasn't going to do it in anger. I was going to do it right. And deep down, I already knew this wasn't the last time she'd meet him. It was only the beginning. The next few days passed like I was trapped in someone else's life. Tara acted normal, too normal. She sent me texts during lunch, called me in the evening, kissed me on the cheek before bed. It was all there. The softness, the small talk, the same tone she'd used for years. But now, every word sounded like a script. And I played along. Because I needed her to think I believed every line. She mentioned her mom's health, which had suddenly worsened, and her friend from work, who needed emotional support. Every excuse was planted like clockwork, but what stood out most was her phone. She started guarding it. Even while brushing her teeth, it stayed within reach. Before, it had been left lying around for hours. I didn't touch it yet. I didn't want panic. I wanted a pattern. 3 nights after I saw her at the motel, she said she was heading to her mom's again. She packed a small overnight bag and kissed me on the forehead. I nodded, watched her drive away, and waited 10 minutes before leaving myself. Her mom lived 40 minutes east. She drove west. The same route, the same turns, the same cheap motel. That's when my confusion started to turn into something colder, methodical. I parked 2 blocks away this time and walked. The neon sign still flickered above the roof. Her Honda sat in the same corner. Jesse's silver Tacoma wasn't there yet. I waited. He arrived 20 minutes later. I watched from across the street as he knocked on the door, and she opened it halfway, pulling him inside. No hesitation, no second thoughts. The door closed behind them, and the light flicked on again. I stood there for a long while, no sound but the hum of a vending machine nearby. It wasn't rage this time, just understanding. I finally accepted what it was. They weren't making mistakes. They were maintaining a system, careful, quiet, consistent. I went home around midnight, sat at the kitchen table, and started writing things down. Dates, times, small inconsistencies. The work dinner she claimed to have the week before aligned perfectly with one of Jesse's supposed late showings. I cross-checked it all with our shared calendar. Every lie overlapped neatly, almost rehearsed. The next morning, I didn't go to work again. I called in sick, said the flu hadn't passed. Instead, I opened her laptop. The password hadn't changed in years. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but within minutes, I saw the confirmation. Hotel bookings, all under her name, all the same motel. A pattern stretching back 2 months. The guest name matched Jesse's initials on one of the receipts. The rest of the day, I barely moved. My mind replayed every scene in reverse, finding moments I dismissed as random. The new lingerie she said she bought on sale. The perfume that appeared on her dresser. The late-night showers. Everything connected like puzzle pieces that had been there all along, only upside down. Still, I didn't confront her. It was too soon. Confrontation would give her control, an apology, a justification, a sob story. I wanted truth, not emotion. I needed to see what they'd risk next. That evening, she came home cheerful, carrying takeout. We ate together. She talked about her mom's plans for the wedding, laughed about the floral arrangements. Her phone buzzed once, screen lighting up face down. I caught the corner of the notification reflected in her wine glass. Jesse. Tonight. I didn't move. I didn't even look at her. I just asked if she wanted more wine. When she went to bed, I scrolled through old texts between Jesse and me. Months of friendly nonsense. Sports, work jokes, plans. Hidden among them, subtle breadcrumbs. References to times they'd run into each other without me. I found one from a month ago. Hey man, Tara said you were tied up at work, but she wanted to help me pick out something for the apartment. She's got a good eye. I'd replied, no problem, bro. I stared at those words for a long time. No problem, bro. The following weekend, I decided to test her. I told her my boss scheduled emergency maintenance at a warehouse 2 towns over. Long hours. Overnight. She nodded, kissed me goodbye, said she'd see me the next day. She even packed me a sandwich. Around 9 that night, I drove to the same motel and parked at the gas station nearby. Her car wasn't there yet. I waited. Half an hour later, it pulled in. This time, she wasn't cautious. She parked, got out, and texted. 5 minutes later, Jesse's truck arrived. He got out with a small overnight bag. They walked in together. Same room, same ritual. I took pictures again, then turned my camera on the license plates. The evidence didn't feel like revenge material. It felt like documentation of who they'd chosen to be. When I got home around 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how easy they made it. No paranoia, no guilt, no attempt to hide from someone who'd trusted them both the most. They assumed I'd never notice because I wasn't the dramatic type. The next morning, she came home wearing sunglasses, claiming a migraine. She crawled into bed beside me, whispering that she missed me. I said nothing, just pulled the blanket higher. She fell asleep within minutes. I watched her hand resting on my chest, the same hand that had touched him hours earlier. The next few days, I focused on collecting more than just proof. I wanted connections, financial, social, emotional. I checked our joint credit account. There were charges that made sense only when you knew what they were for. Hotel payments labeled as gift shop, restaurant dinners on nights she claimed to work late. I found a charge from a jewelry store. She told me she was buying earrings for her cousin's birthday. The date matched another hotel booking. By then, my perspective shifted entirely. I wasn't thinking like a betrayed man. I was thinking like someone watching a case unfold. She'd built a web of lies, and Jesse was tangled in it too, probably thinking he was clever enough to hide behind friendship. I needed someone who could confirm things from the outside. That's when I remembered Megan, Jesse's ex. She'd dated him for years before he dumped her without warning last fall. I hadn't spoken to her since, but something told me she knew pieces of the puzzle I didn't. I found her on social media, sent a short message. Need to ask you something about Jesse. Not personal, just serious. She replied within an hour. If it's about him cheating, I already know. He did it to me, too. That reply hit like a trigger. I told her I thought he was involved with someone close to me. She didn't hesitate. We met the next evening at a diner on the edge of town. She arrived in a faded denim jacket, eyes tired but sharp. When I told her the name, Tara, she leaned back slowly, as if she already knew it before I said it. Turns out Jesse had bragged months ago that he wasn't done with his best friend's girl. She'd assumed it was a joke. She still had messages, flirty exchanges, plans, timestamps. The same nights Tara claimed to be visiting her mom. By the time I left that diner, the last trace of denial was gone. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't confusion. It was deliberate. Megan asked what I planned to do. I told her I didn't know yet, but I wanted them to feel what they'd built. She offered to help. Said she'd pretend to reach out to Jesse, say she wanted closure, maybe meet for coffee. She wanted him to squirm, and I needed him exposed. The plan was simple. Bait him into a lie, catch his reaction, track how Tara responded. If they panicked, it meant they feared the truth leaking. If they stayed calm, it meant they believed I was still blind. Either way, I'd know what kind of people I was dealing with before deciding how to end it. That night, Tara climbed into bed beside me again, asking about work. Her tone was soft, careful, like she could sense I was distant. I told her I was just tired. She smiled, pressed against me, and whispered, "We'll be okay after the wedding. Everything's just stressful right now." I looked at her for a long time, studying her face, her voice, her calm certainty. Then I said the only honest thing left in me. "Yeah, everything's going exactly how it's supposed to." When Megan texted me 2 days later, she'd already done what we planned. Jesse replied to her message in minutes, acting polite but cautious, pretending to hope she was doing okay. She played it perfectly, told him she wanted to catch up, that she'd been thinking about how things ended. He agreed to meet for coffee that weekend. That gave me time to prepare my end. By then, my apartment felt like a crime lab. Receipts stacked on the table. Screenshots. Timestamps. A pattern of deceit mapped out with painful accuracy. Each lie had a date, a location, a digital footprint. And it all pointed to the same thing. They were consistent. Predictable. Comfortable enough to risk everything because they thought I was too trusting to look twice. Tara still played her part flawlessly. She made breakfast every morning, sent sweet messages, acted attentive. It was like she believed affection could cover the smell of betrayal. The ring on her finger meant nothing now. It was just part of the disguise. That Friday, she told me she'd be staying late for a meeting with the decorator. She even showed me a Pinterest board as proof, scrolling through photos of floral arrangements and color palettes. I nodded, pretending to care, while inside I was counting the hours. As soon as she left, I texted Megan. "If he cancels or lies, tell me." She replied, "He's still on. 7 p.m. I waited until then, pacing like a man rehearsing for a role he didn't want to play. I wasn't nervous. I was strangely calm. The kind of calm you feel before a storm you've already accepted will hit. At 7:10, Megan sent a photo. Jesse was there. Same smirk, same arrogance. He was laughing across the table like he hadn't destroyed anything. According to her, he talked about his new relationship vaguely, calling Tara someone special but complicated. He didn't mention my name, not once. That detail said everything. After the meeting, Jesse texted Tara. She replied instantly. I knew because Megan forwarded me a screenshot, Jesse bragging. She still doesn't know. We're fine. That line kept echoing. We're fine. The next morning, I acted normal. I even cooked breakfast. Tara was cheerful, humming as she got dressed. She had plans to meet a friend for brunch. I asked which one. She said, Laura from yoga. There was no Laura from yoga. She quit 6 months ago. After she left, I decided it was time. I called a few mutual friends, people who'd been around for years. I told them I wanted to have a small get-together before the wedding, something casual. I said Tara wanted everyone to relax before the chaos of planning took over. Nobody suspected anything. Everyone agreed to come. Jesse, of course, said yes too. That evening, the apartment was spotless. I'd rearranged the dining area, set up drinks, music, everything. On the surface, it looked like a celebration. Underneath, it was a stage. Tara came home looking radiant, all smiles. She seemed relieved that I was happy again. Jesse arrived half an hour later, greeting me like a brother. He slapped my shoulder, joked about old times, handed me a six-pack. I almost laughed at the audacity. Megan showed up last, pretending to be casual, though she knew the whole plan. The night rolled on smoothly. Laughter, drinks, small talk. But I watched everything. The glances, the micro-expressions, the way Tara avoided eye contact with him for the first half hour. They were nervous. They knew their secret was fragile, and neither of them could tell if I knew. Around 9, when everyone was relaxed, I excused myself to grab more ice from the kitchen. That's when I triggered the second half of the plan. Megan got up, pretending to take a phone call. She stepped outside, dialed Tara's number, then hung up immediately. The phone buzzed on the counter. Tara glanced at it, confused. A text came through seconds later. Call me when you can. Motel manager left a message about something you forgot. Her face drained of color. I came back with the ice, pretending not to notice her reaction. Jesse looked at her subtly, trying to mask his panic. He picked up his beer and sipped too fast. Megan re-entered, feigning ignorance, chatting with a friend about traffic. Tara excused herself soon after, mumbling something about the bathroom. Jesse followed a minute later, pretending to check his phone in private. It was almost comical. I let them go. They whispered near the hallway, voices hushed but tense. Then she slipped back to the couch, eyes darting toward the door. When the party ended an hour later, people thanked us, hugging, smiling. Tara forced a cheerful goodbye. Jesse left last, avoiding my gaze. His handshake was weak, sweaty. As soon as the door closed, I locked it. Tara stood near the sink, clutching her phone like a lifeline. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, silent. She tried to speak, but the sound died in her throat. Her voice trembled when she finally asked, "Is something wrong?" I didn't answer. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dropped it on the counter. Photos, videos, receipts, a list of hotel dates. Her eyes darted between the screen and me, then to the floor. "You've been lying for 2 months," I said quietly. "Sometimes on Tuesdays, sometimes on Fridays. Same motel, same man." Her knees buckled slightly as she whispered that it wasn't what I thought, that it was complicated. I didn't ask for details. I told her the wedding was canceled, that her things would be boxed up by morning. I walked past her to the bedroom, opened the drawer where the invitation proofs were stacked, and dropped them into a trash bag. She begged for a chance to explain, to talk it through. I just told her to leave before I called someone to make her. When she realized I meant it, her tone shifted. She started blaming Jesse, calling him manipulative, saying he pressured her, that she made a mistake. I listened in silence. Then I handed her the printed receipts showing her bookings, each one under her name. Her face collapsed. She didn't argue again. She just grabbed her bag, muttering that I was cruel for humiliating her like this. The door closed, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt clean. But it wasn't over. The next morning, I sent Jesse a message. "Meet me at the Lakeside Inn. Room 14. Noon." He replied instantly. "Why? What's this about?" "You'll see." I arrived early, parked in the same spot I'd watched them from before. When he showed up, he looked uneasy, scanning the lot. I stepped out of my truck holding a manila folder. He started talking fast, saying he didn't know what was going on. I didn't let him finish. I opened the folder and showed him everything. Every receipt, photo, timestamp. His jaw tensed. He tried to defend her, saying I misunderstood, that they were figuring things out. I told him he could figure them out without me. Then I walked away, leaving him standing there with the proof of his own stupidity in his hands. As I got into my truck, I saw his reflection in the rearview mirror, frozen, pale, staring down at the evidence that turned his lies into concrete. That night, Tara's mother called. She'd heard what happened. Tara had gone to her in tears, claiming I'd made up stories. I sent her mother one photo. Just one. She didn't call again. By the end of the week, the wedding venue contract was canceled, the joint savings account split, and every guest notified of a personal emergency. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. People always find out. Still, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. They hadn't learned anything. They were still protecting themselves from shame, not guilt. And I wasn't finished making sure the damage stayed where it belonged. The week after I ended things with Tara felt unreal. My phone barely stopped buzzing. Friends asking what happened, co-workers whispering, her relatives leaving vague messages about misunderstandings. I didn't respond to any of them. I let the silence do the work. Truth spreads faster when you don't defend yourself. Megan texted me 2 days later. "You should know, Jesse's losing it." Apparently, after our confrontation, he showed up at her place drunk, ranting about everything falling apart. His firm had already found out he was using company time and funds to meet Tara. Someone had forwarded the motel photos to his manager. He was suspended pending investigation. Tara tried reaching me again. She left a voicemail crying, saying she'd made a mistake, that she'd thrown away something real. She said she missed me, that Jesse wasn't who she thought he was. I deleted the message without listening to the end. She'd lied too comfortably for too long to suddenly rediscover guilt. The wedding vendor calls were next. Cancellations, refunds, penalties. I handled them one by one, calm and deliberate. Every dollar I recovered from the joint account went back to me, legally documented with proof that she'd used part of it for her getaways. Her name was blacklisted from the venue for false statements. It wasn't vengeance anymore. It was cleanup. By the end of the month, Tara had moved back to her mother's house. Jesse left town. Megan told me he'd been fired officially after evidence of inappropriate conduct surfaced. It wasn't just her or me. He'd done it to others too. He'd finally run out of people to manipulate. I never told anyone how I found out. I didn't need to. The truth had its own rhythm. People connected the dots on their own, and both of them became ghosts in circles they once thrived in. One night, about 6 weeks later, I stopped by the same Walmart on my way home. Same aisles, same lights, same hum in the air. I passed the shelf where I first saw her that night, the red box, the bottle of wine. Nothing had changed except me. It wasn't anger that lingered anymore. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you realize betrayal doesn't define you. It just clears the noise. I paid for my groceries, walked out into the parking lot, and got into my truck. The engine started smooth, the radio playing low. For the first time in months, I didn't look over my shoulder. Whatever they'd built together had already collapsed, and I didn't have to lift a finger to finish it.